welcome everybody to another episode of Hollywood Kitchen. And today we are going to talk all about actress Dorothy Mackaill, who, if you don't know about her, you're going to learn a lot in the next hour or so here. My name's Carrie Bible. I'm the host of Hollywood Kitchen, and I'm joined by my friend Danny Miller.
Hey there.
And my friend Laura Gabriel, author of the new book, The Captain of Her Soul, The Life of Marion Davies. So welcome, you guys.
Thank you for doing this again, Carrie. We've done Dorothy Mackaill's Popovers once before, and here we are doing them again.
Well, what happened is we originally did these as part of the Barbara Stanwyck Christmas Spectacular like a year ago. And since Barbara mentions Popovers and Remember the Night, I thought it would be great to include Popovers. But then these were so good. And since we figured maybe Dorothy deserves a standalone episode, and also she was Marion Davies' very close friend. So for a variety of reasons, both Bread and Marion, it just made sense to do this.
I think she deserves her own episodes. My favorite Jeopardy topic would be people who were enormously huge stars in their day, who are like in most places, let's face it, almost completely forgotten except by freaks like us. And she fits the bill because she was super famous. And why don't we know more about her?
Yeah, well, I think there's a number of reasons for that. I've been thinking about it this week. She makes a lot of great films, but I don't think any of them were what I would call classics. There's not a Casablanca, Citizen Kane, and Wizard of Oz, like one of those movies that is such a iconic movie, you know. And also she was pretty much done by about the mid-30s in her career. So she kind of left the screen fairly early on too, which I also don't think helped that cause. So
yeah, sort of similarly to Billy Dove. We were talking about Billy Dove last time. And yeah, she just kind of made the decision to not do it anymore. She moved to Hawaii and had a nice life.
Yeah, and much like Billy Dove, also she had a happy ending, because quite a number of these stars, which we've talked about, wind up having these sad or tragic declines or downfalls or deaths or whatnot. And Dorothy Mackaill seems to have lived the life of Riley. We'll talk more about her career in a minute, but she fell in love with Hawaii on a visit in 1929.
Well, and made a movie there, right?
Decided to move in 1934. She invested in Los Angeles real estate, which was really smart.
Wilshire Boulevard.
Yeah, and she basically lived off that money and sat her butt on the beach in Hawaii for like decades, which not a bad way to go.
She lived for decades at the Royal Hawaiian Hotel, which to this day is like the fanciest, gorgeous hotel. So yeah, go Dorothy.
Yeah,
and Fred Lawrence Giles interviewed her. I have Fred Lawrence Giles interview tapes with Dorothy, and so Fred Lawrence Giles interviewed her. And when he contacted her to be interviewed for the book, she said, "I will fly from Hawaii to Los Angeles to talk to you about this woman." And so she did. She made a trip solely for the purpose of talking to Fred Lawrence Giles about Marion.
Oh,
well, that's a devoted friend.
It is, and a devotion to him getting the story right. Like a devotion to her memory.
Definitely.
Oh,
yeah.
And from that interview where you got some of the great quotes from her in your book, Laura?
Yes. Most of the quotes that I have from her in my book are from the Giles interview tapes. When I listened to her tapes, Dorothy's interview tapes with Giles, she is the loveliest woman. I mean, just very interactive with him, and offering him things, and they're chatting like friends, and so she was quite a lady. And adored Marion. I mean, she and Marion were really close, and Dorothy felt very, I don't know how I would say, but she felt almost a duty to her, for whatever reason, as a friend. Later on, when Marion was having trouble with Horace, Dorothy Mackaill, offered to take her away. So she was a very good friend to Marion.
I love hearing stories like that, like when Mary Astor was having her problems, and I forgot who the
Ruth
woman
Chatterton.
was. Yes, Ruth Chatterton.
Yeah.
Her Yeah, I love that.
Yeah, her rival, well, sort of rival in Dodsworth.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah.
Yeah, and I love that off screen they were just such close
The
friends.
press, some of the press would have had us believe that these women were always, catfighting and whatever, but there were some real solid friendships. Did both of you see, I watched the other day, her appearance on the This Is Your Life, Joel McRae?
No.
Oh, it's so
I gotta
lovely.
see that.
She starred, I guess it's in the 70s. And she looks fantastic. She's just, and he's so thrilled to see her. She's like a surprise guest, so she must have flown from Hawaii for that. And she talks about how they made 2 films together, and she talked about at the time they were filming together, he was buying the ranch that we all know and love, and he was encouraging her to, and she's like, what would I do in a ranch? So she bought Wilshire Boulevard property, smart lady. But she was just delightful. You gotta watch that. That's on YouTube.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, because like we were talking about, I hate it that constantly when you hear about actresses in old Hollywood, it's, oh, they hate each other's guts, oh, they fought over a man. So I just love hearing a story about women that are friends, that are supporting each other, because you don't get enough of those kind of stories.
Right. And I feel like Dorothy was a really good friend. I mean, and a devoted, loyal friend, much like Marion was to her friends.
And it is interesting because, she left her career kind of early, although she had an enormous heyday. And my first tendency is like, oh, they spit her out or she was miserable. And like, no, I think she left. I mean, sure, the roles, the offers may have lessened. But I think she was perfectly happy leaving. I always like them about
It
that.
seems that similarly to Marion left movies in 1937 to take care of Hearst. Dorothy Mackaill left movies in 1937 to take care of her mother.
Oh,
Yeah.
right.
They had a lot in common. They were both Ziegfeld Follies girls. They both started an early silent film. They both, made pre-codes. They both, there's a lot they had in common.
Yeah, and they really loved each other.
And I think that, we've talked about this before, but I think there's something kind of noble almost about knowing when it's time to step away, because I understand why she did it, but I love Betty Davis so much. And it always makes me sad when she is so sick and so riddled with cancer that you barely recognize her, and she's still going on Johnny Carson and you just want to go, oh, what?
And just sassy as all get out,
Sassy as all get out, and we love her for it. But you just kind of feel like she couldn't let it go or give it up. And
later performances were still
and
great.
then of course we could ask ourselves too, like, why should she want to give it up? And even she's older and has cancer and had a stroke, but who cares? She's Betty Davis.
I know.
She shouldn't. And I think that this is something that Betty Davis had from the beginning of her career. She didn't really care about the way she looked to other people.
Sure.
She was old, and she, and everybody knew that. And I think that she was not self-conscious about it.
And of course, she didn't invest, unfortunately, as well as Dorothy Mackaill. So part of her had to make money.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah.
It's sad because I just want to run up and hug her and hold her and just be like, it's okay, Betty. I don't know, it just makes me sad.
Yeah, but she has no self-consciousness about it.
This is true.
Yeah.
This is true. No regrets for Betty. Yeah. But it is interesting though, there's some people that they keep going, and other people, they're happy to walk away, and they're happy to just to kind of find life after stardom or after Hollywood. So I'm kind of interested by both sides of it, both attitudes toward it. Yeah. And I have to get into the popovers because we have a whole lot to talk about with the popovers.
Yeah.
This recipe comes to us from the 1920, I think it's the 29 photo plate cookbook. And it's Dorothy Mackayle's aggressive popovers, which is what Laura calls it, because Laura, why do you call it that?
Well, because the directions are so militant. Like she says, you cannot cheat. Like you have to beat the batter for 5 minutes and no cheating. And do not open the oven door before. And I think that some of us have opened the oven door. My popovers are still in the oven, and I have not opened the door yet because I'm scared of her. So yeah, I mean, it sounds so aggressive. And then she says, oh, it's very easy. They're very easy to make if you follow directions.
Everything about it makes me think, because we always have the discussion, is it really from them? I kind of think this is from her.
Yeah,
possibly, yes.
I do want to do a really quick shout out. I this website this week, and I've actually been communicating with the lady behind this website about this particular cookbook, the Photo Play Cookbook. And the website is called communitybookarchive.org, and it's a community cookbook archive.org. And it's an archive of all these vintage cookbooks that have been scanned.
Oh, they're having.
So yes, and it's really a terrific resource, and the lady behind it could not be nicer.
You guys, look.
That's how they're supposed to look.
Now that is a popover right there.
Now, Laura, do you know the thing of like piercing them a little bit so the steam can escape so they don't collapse?
Should I do that? Should I pierce them?
When I made them where they're really successful, you'll see my version later. It does help because sometimes I've made them and I didn't do that and they're just like a souffle falling. Just a little.
I need to pierce them and see. Oh my God, I'm so excited about these popovers.
Gorgeous.
Oh my God, I wish I could teleport to Oakland, California right now and eat those.
Okay, stop it, oven. The oven is yelling at me. Okay,
Let's
these are like perfect.
Here's what we
These
are.
are perfect. And I think the key, I mean, at least what I tried to do. Look at that.
Beautiful.
Oh,
And Carrie,
Tastes good, but they're not as high.
that is a thing of beauty.
Now that's a popover.
That is a popover.
I'm
impressed.
and Carrie, this is your pan. This is the popover pan that you gave. So last time we made Dorothy Mackayle's aggressive popovers, Carrie sent me a popover pan because I was using muffin tins before. I was using muffin tins before and I needed a popover pan. So Carrie sent me one, and so I was so excited.
Yay.
But yeah, I think I was very careful to beat the batter for 5 minutes.
So was I.
And didn't open the oven door.
That's where I went wrong.
Well, I mean, it is a simple recipe. There's only like 4 ingredients. So
Staples most of us have in our pantry, so not stuff that's hard to find.
we can just, should we walk through? I'm using my bowl I got at the Rosemary estate sale. This was used by Sally Rogers and baby Rosemary herself. So I love cooking in it. And you start with a scant cup flour. I remember when I had no idea what that means. You know what that means, right?
I don't. What does
it just means a scant cup means a little bit less than a cup, right, Laura?
Yeah, that's what I did. I figured that's kind of what it meant.
I already mixed 1/4 teaspoon of salt in there. I'm going to sift it with an antique sifter from my wife's grandmother from Texas.
But it's got lots of rust in it, and I've been afraid to use it.
And then you mix it. Now, when I made them this morning, we're just going to show you how it makes. I did use an electric mixer and beat the crap out of it. But then you add a cup of milk.
Okay.
And you start mixing that. This is going to just be a little demo. 2 farm fresh eggs.
I found eggs this week. Great.
Oh, you're having a hard time.
Oh, hooray. I think they're slowly starting to come back.
I called stores for the Billy Dunn episode to find eggs. That was a challenge, but luckily they're available now.
I always buy ridiculously expensive eggs at the Larchmont Farmers Market. They never had a shortage, but if you're willing to pay a ridiculous amount of money.
Yeah.
You beat the eggs first.
Okay.
And then you add them to your mixture. It's the simplest thing in the world.
It is, yeah.
Along with a tablespoon of melted butter. That's starting to congeal a little bit. Oh, well. And then you beat the bejesus out of it.
Timer, lest we upset Dorothy Mackaill.
5 minutes and no cheating, or else Dorothy's gonna come back and haunt you.
It's on.
Yeah, I'm not sure I'm really gonna make this batch because I would do, well, it's feeding fine.
Why not?
You're trying to kill me, making me beat this.
You be half a minute and I'll be at 2.5 minutes, I'll do 2.5 minutes. And while we're beating it, we can talk about Dorothy Mackayle's film career, because I kind of have my DVDs categorized at Chateau Bible by genre. And so I went to my pre-code DVD stash this week, and much to my surprise, I discovered I have 5 Dorothy Mackaill movies on DVD. So it was time for a rewatch. And I started out with probably the most famous film she did, called Safe in Hell.
I love that movie.
Oh my God. It's like, if you think that Babyface is pre-code, this is like Babyface on steroids.
It really is, and
That's
it's
so-
not the most
This is.
enthusiastic prostitute ever. When the madam calls and tells her to be at a John's apartment, she goes, "I'm practically there." Like,
Mhm.
it's kind of funny how the opening shot, she's like in lingerie with her legs up on the desk.
Honestly, that film put.
Yes, and that's the famous shot.
Yes, that is a very famous shot, and it's directed by William Wellman, who of course directed Wings and A Star Is Born in 1937, and tons of great classics. And it's kind of a disturbing film too, because I don't want to give away any spoilers. It is on DVD, but she winds up having to go to this island of convicts and hide out. And these men are chasing her, threatening her with rape and violence at every turn. It's got some really dark undercurrents going on. And it's honestly, it's a very interesting film.
And
And one of the-
a fabulous performance by Nina Mae McKinney.
Yes,
One of the first, I think she may be the first African-American woman who got a studio contract. I mean, and she's also like, there should be more about her. She's
there
amazing.
totally should be more about her, absolutely.
None of the stereotypes typical of that time period. She has a great part as the hotel owner. She sings. She
Yeah.
adds to the pre-code.
Oh yeah, there's a lot.
Yeah, there's a lot to analyze about her performance alone.
Oh, it's a really good movie.
Yeah,
And it's, like I said, it is available on DVD, so please check out Safe in Hell if you have never seen it. It's hard to talk too much about because I don't want to give away any spoilers, but
the one thing I want to say,
interesting.
can I say one thing about Safe and Hell?
Oh,
I
please.
want to say that we talked a little bit about Babyface before, and how Safe and Hell is basically Babyface on steroids. But it would be a really interesting feminist double feature, because I feel like Babyface is a woman who takes charge of her own destiny, and as in Safe in Hell, Dorothy Mackaill, she's a woman who cannot catch a break from society. Society has wronged her at every turn. And so it's these two different women who are no less, like, one is not stronger than the other. It's just a matter of circumstance in how their lives turned out.
I agree. I
Yeah.
think that'd be a fantastic double. You need to program Laura, because that
That
is
would be fun.
your idea.
Oh, there's so much discussed there. Yeah, get Carrie Beecham on it too and talk
Oh,
about it.
please.
And I think, correct me if I'm wrong, if you know, but I think Barbara Stanwyck at one point was going to play that role and didn't. But I mean, Dorothy Mackaill,
She knocks it out of the park.
she nailed it. She's great in it. That's that seeing that film, you think, why doesn't everyone know who Dorothy Mackaill is? Maybe because
Right.
that film and others of her films aren't that widely seen. Unfortunately,
Yeah.
a bunch of them are lost, or we think they're lost.
Well, Danny and I were looking through her silent films. I've actually seen The Barker a long time ago when the silent movie theater in LA kind of was a thing. But there's one that jumped out on her filmography that I have to see, and it's called it's like The Ladies in a Turkish Bath from 1928. And it is kind of making me nuts. I need to either contact the Library of Congress, Eastman House, as Laura suggests, or somewhere. I need to see Ladies in a Turkish Bath.
TCM Film Festival, get on it.
Please.
Yes.
Work for this movie poster makes
Have
me.
they ever shown Safe in Hell at the TCM?
I think they have.
Have they? I didn't see it.
I
If
think
they
it
did.
was like 7 years ago. I believe they
Yep.
did with Donald Bogey there introducing
I'm a
it.
vocal, okay.
Bogle, right.
Oh, yeah, okay.
And I think
Because of the Nina Mae McKinney factor.
yeah.
Yeah.
And then there's a black actor in it too, who's also remarkable, but I'm forgetting his name.
Yes, and he's that is a really interesting character, because he talk about defying all the stereotypes.
Right.
Okay, 5 minutes is up.
All
Exactly.
right.
Okay.
So then, if we were following, I just didn't want to be running into the other room, we would have been preheating our beautiful popover pan in the oven. It should be scalding hot.
Yes.
I would.
We would have been
I
preheating.
did mine at 450 for 15 minutes, and then I lowered it to 350 for about 10 minutes. And that's how I did it. Laura, what temperatures did you use for yours?
I used 450.
Okay.
I did too, and then I lowered it, although my oven's a little crazy. But so you fill them all up. Laura, how much were they almost filled, your cups? Or
I sort of experimented because I didn't know if this was going to work. So I did some cups almost completely full, and some cups like halfway full. And the actually, interestingly enough, this one, well, yeah, no, I guess it makes sense. This one's sort of the lowest one. That was the lowest cup. I pierced the popovers, but the really high ones were obviously the ones that went really high. The low one I didn't pierce, so it just looks higher.
Yeah, so here are the ones that Carrie and I made. I made these this morning. They're good. They have a lot of air in them, but they're like muffins. So I don't, maybe if I filled them higher. And you know, there's no sugar in this recipe, so we think they'd be good. We have some raspberry jam, some applesauce.
Yeah, that's a great idea. I just ate mine with a little bit of butter, and it was fabulous. But
I'm gonna sit here and
try some jam.
while we talk about Dorothy Mackill's movies, the other movies I watched besides Safe in Hell, which I figured was the best one to kick off with, I also watched a movie called Party Husband, and this is a pre-code. I don't know if you guys have seen this. But in the beginning of the film, she gets married, and at the wedding reception, she and her husband announced that they are going to, quote, retain their individualities, which turns out to be code for they want to have an open marriage and both date.
Free code, we love you.
And that's what happens. Of course, predictably, it doesn't really go well. And it's an interesting movie because they are basically both brazenly and openly having affairs with other people right after they're married. So it's an interesting film that it's got beautiful Art Deco sets, gorgeous gowns. I wouldn't say it's a classic, but it's a fun movie to watch. And it's on the same DVD with a movie called Office Wife, which is yet again another pre-code where Dorothy Mackaill takes a job as a secretary and she falls in love with her boss who's married and she's engaged to someone else. And so that's also another fun film on that DVD set.
Honestly, if you looked at a list of the films that made the production code go nuts, I bet several of them are her films. Thank you. Delicious. The raspberry jam is a good.
Oh wow. And then, so I'm stuffing my face right now. Also, she had a supporting role in No Man of Her Own,
Right.
which is the film Clark Gable and Carol Lombard made together, 1932. She was in a film called Love Affair, not the Charles Boyer, Irene Dunn version, but a 1932 version. And this was a romantic drama, and it's one of the first big roles for Humphrey Bogart. And it is on YouTube, by the way, so it is seeable on YouTube. And also, I watched another film last night called The Reckless Hour. Have you guys seen that one?
No.
It's another very pre-code movie. And she plays a working girl who falls in love with a debonair rich man. And there are some pretty terrible consequences that happen as a result. And it's a movie about class, a movie about relationships. Again, I wouldn't say it's like a timeless classic, but it's a fascinating look into the era and the class system. And also, you know, Joan Blondell plays a supporting role. I have to plug Joan Blondell because we love her. And Joan Blondell plays her sister in a couple of these pre-code movies. So then they kind of look alike too, and they're really good together. So it's kind of fun to see those.
It almost feels like she did get a lot of parallel roles to Barbara Stanwyck. Like they were kind of cut from the same cloth. They could be these tough, but you know, appealing women. And God, you just think, I mean, I know there's whole books and courses of study on the pre-code era, but when that switched over, I mean, what a loss, because these films dealt with such gritty topics in ways that we would not see again for decades.
Right. Oh, I wanted to comment too about Dorothy Mackaill being similar to Barbara Stanwyck. She's not at all, I think, similar to Marion in terms of her career, but Hearst referred to them as the twins.
Oh,
yeah, referred to Dorothy and Marion as the twins because he thought that they looked a lot alike.
I could see that easily.
Yeah, and they do look a bit alike.
Oh, she was so beautiful. Here's a younger picture of her than the one in the frame that I just think is so lovely. She was gorgeous.
Yeah, she was.
You're so good. Sorry.
Even not fully popped, they're delicious.
Yeah.
Yeah, these are so good. Yeah, there's a reason why we kept this recipe and are making it again.
Mhm. Well, as we've talked about, some of these recipes are like, wow, I will never make that again. And
Right.
other ones, you're like, wow, I will revisit that
You want to
again.
share oatmeal bar anyone?
Gosh, oatmeal sticks, that was a big disaster.
Now
What
Dorothy
was
had,
what was the Shirley Temple one?
Oh my gosh, it was Shirley Temple's, I think it was like a brownie recipe, but
how could that go wrong?
well, you'd be surprised.
Yeah, it like burned.
It wound up cratering on me really badly, and then there were issues with the recipe. I did a whole blog post about it, and I talk about how the recipe threw me for a loop-de-loop. So read all about my travails with Shirley Temple's recipe.
Don't follow a 6-year-old's recipe. Maybe that's the lesson.
It's true, that is
And I was just gonna say, you know, her silence are amazing, but she had a great voice, I thought, and it's not like her transition to sound was any reason for her departure, I don't think. She was British, she was
Mhm.
born in Hull, England, but I'm forgetting, in most of the movies you saw, does she play American with an American accent?
American.
Yeah. And there was recently, I saw this online as well, some very young filmmaker in Hull, England, her hometown, was all excited about, I love when you see really young people who care about these silent stars. And she did a one-woman show that I wish that was online about Dorothy
Nice.
Mackaill. Yeah. Look that up, you can see this filmmaker or this playwright being interviewed about it in the British press. It's quite interesting.
Ooh.
Yeah.
You know, I love it when they film plays, because for those of us who can't be there for whatever the reason, it really kind of opens up the world for that performance to get seen and appreciated. And wow, we should beg her to make that performance accessible to all of us.
Yeah.
Getting back her Ziegfeld. First of all, I was amazed that I read a lot of bios of her online, and they all say, you know, sometimes they're just, as you know, Laura, just ridiculously not true. But it seems like they all, I don't think she had like this big fictional machine creating this fake bio for her, because they kind of covered all the points, including the fact that she was in that, what's that Ziegfeld show that was on the rooftop?
The Midnight Frolic.
Yeah, I would love to have seen that.
Yeah.
Where's that film that shows that? And,
Seriously. Well, the other thing is that it seemed she wasn't a scandal figure. I mean, she was married 3 times, and each marriage was very brief, but I don't think they were to anyone that was in the industry, and it wasn't.
Her first husband was the Jewish director who had escaped the Nazis,
Okay.
and he was an interesting guy. But yeah, none of them lasted that long. She
None
didn't
of
have any
them-
children.
No kids, and none of them were like, you know what I mean, superstar marriages where she
Right.
was like with somebody
Yeah.
that was a big star as well.
Or a big scandal that she broke
Yeah.
up a marriage.
Yeah, there's nothing like that, which some stars, I think some stars are remembered for that kind of stuff as opposed to anything else.
Sure.
I was just gonna say that.
So no iconic type films. She left the screen early. And also, I was kind of wondering about this last night when I was watching her movies again. If the problem was, I mean, she's so talented, she's drop dead gorgeous, but maybe it was a case of there's a lot of actresses who were, and there's not as many great roles to go around. So maybe it was a case of, because I kept thinking to myself, why didn't she get better material? Why weren't there better and more of these kind of films, like say Safe and Hell?
Mhm.
And I thought, well, maybe it's just a problem of there's so many people and only so many roles,
Yeah.
you know,
Yeah.
so maybe that could have been part of it.
But certainly in the mid-20s, the studios gave her the full star treatment. There's all these ads about how Dorothy Mackaill is gonna pack your theater, you know, cigarette ads. I mean, she did the full star thing. And maybe when that started to fade a bit, she's like, all right, that was fun.
That was one chapter of my life. What was that?
She didn't make any movies with Marion, or did she?
No, they didn't make any movies together.
Was she a
But
regular at San Simeon?
oh, she was at San Simeon all the time. And she was, yeah, and she was also on the 1934 trip to Europe.
And you
Mm.
talk about how she was with Marion when the plane crash happened up there.
Yeah, and so in 1938, so they had both retired at this point. Marion and Dorothy Mackaill were hanging out at San Simeon, and they were kind of bored. They decided they were going to bet on some horses at the horse track in LA. So they placed some bets. They hung around for a while, and then they tried to call back to check on the horses, and they picked up the phone, and they heard on the other end, "Damn it, get off the phone." This is all from Dorothy Mackaill remembering, right? So, damn it, get off the phone. turns out that the line was busy with the person who coordinated the planes at San Simeon was trying to contact the pilot to tell him to take an alternate route.
Oy.
Because there was fog at the fog in San Simeon rolls in and rolls out at like very specific times. So he was trying to tell him to take an alternate route, but he couldn't get the pilot because the phone had been picked up. And so the plane ended up crashing. And the people on board, there was one survivor, but the people on board died. It was a private plane. There were, I think, 3 people who died. But they were coming to visit San Simeon, and Marion felt so responsible for this crash that she was depressed for, like, she couldn't get out of bed.
Oy.
And Dorothy Mackaill remembered that she just went completely out of her mind, just paralyzed, because she felt that she was responsible.
Oh, God.
Awful.
Yeah.
But again, what a good friend to support her so much.
Yeah. And this was Lord and Lady Plunkett, you know, the daughter of Fanny Ward.
Yeah.
Who died. So they had to call Fanny. What happened? You know, can you imagine? I can't even imagine.
Laura, I'm forgetting if it was in your book. Did Marion ever go to Hawaii to visit Dorothy Mackaill?
Mm-mm.
Wonder why.
No.
I would have been there like all the time.
Yeah. Royal Hawaiians no roughing it.
Well, Dorothy moved to Hawaii in the mid-50s, right?
Mm.
In the
Yeah.
mid-50s.
But okay.
No. She didn't move there until a little bit later.
Okay. So
Yeah. And Marion was not in the greatest health.
yeah.
In the mid-late 50s, you know, she was having trouble with her legs. She wasn't, you know, she did travel a little bit to, you know, to the East Coast, but no, she never came to Hawaii. I'm sure that Dorothy made frequent visits to LA. I don't have any stories about her and Dorothy visiting in the later years, but I know that Dorothy was really keeping up with her.
God, wouldn't it have been great if she were around when you started research? It would have been so.
I would have loved to have talked to her. I mean, I
What?
would love to have talked to her, one, because she just seemed like such a nice person. You know, and 2, can you imagine the stories she had? Oh my God.
So many.
Yeah.
And, she didn't give up acting completely like some people that leave and like, I am done. She did a TV thing in the 50s, and then she was on 2 episodes of Hawaii Five-0.
Hawaii 5-0, right.
Which is very fun because, like, all right, they're shooting here. Yeah, I'll be in it. I'll be the old lady, whatever. And she was a gorgeous old lady.
Mm-hmm.
True. Yeah, she was wonderful. And again, I'm glad that I found that I had these movies on DVD again, because I kind of forgot that I had those in my pre-code collection.
Yeah.
How many of her silent films are lost, Annie? Did you find out?
You know, in this list that I have, which, as Laura said, that changes all the time, and who knows how they devise it, but like, well,
She was in a lot of short films.
it's the ones that are lost, like everything except for Shore Leave from 1925, and she made a bunch of movies. Everything from 1927. The Lunatic at Large, come on. She plays Beatrix Staines in The Lunatic. These titles, you just want to see the movie, I don't care. Man Crazy, lost film. Lady Night in Turkish Bath, not lost, but the one after that, she did a version of Lady Be Good. I mean, I would love to see, we need a Dorothy Mackaill Film Festival, damn it.
Seriously, well,
Yeah.
and like if I think something is lost, it'll just drive me crazy. The idea that I can't see something. It's like it'll just make me nuts.
Yeah.
But
Now these other sound films she made in 33, Neighbors' Wives, Curtain at 8, The Chief, I'm not familiar with those. Have you guys ever seen those?
yeah, you know, I haven't, you know, honestly, I am finding a lot of really, really rare B recodes on YouTube recently. And some of them you have to deal with commercials, you have to deal with really horrible prints. But if you can put up with that and watch some of these movies, I've found some really kind of strange and interesting things lately on there. So
Yeah,
it's checking into for sure.
yeah. I'm just looking at the comments. People watching. Karen Hansberry has seen like all these movies.
Ooh, Karen.
She
Yay,
says
love Karen.
she says The Reckless Hour is probably my favorite after Safe in Hell.
Okay, Karen, you'll be introducing that at the TCM festival.
As it should be.
Yeah. Oh, and Leslie Apple says the ingredients in Dorothy's recipe is almost identical to the one that she uses, that Leslie uses, from the KitchenAid cookbook.
Oh, interesting.
Oh, wow.
This one only uses a 1/4 teaspoon of salt. Combine all the ingredients together in the bowl, put the eggs and milk in first, beat it on speed. Oh, that's an interesting, oh, she fills the popover cups half full,
Okay.
places in a cold oven.
Oh, really? Okay, because Dorothy was very adamant about heating up the thing first.
Yeah,
Another tip that Dorothy doesn't do, but when I've made popovers before, you do butter the tins, but some people sprinkle sugar in it, which adds a nice little crusty thing and helps it come out. Because they're not sweet at all.
Benjamin is reminding us here that she was in a movie called Bits of Life with Anna Mae Wong, Noah Beery, and Lon Chaney. I've never seen that.
Yeah. Oh my God. And all of them you've covered on Hollywood Kitchen. Lon Chaney, Anna
Mae Wong, yes.
Is that's not lost? Has Benjamin seen the film?
You know, I'm gonna write him after this and find out, because I would love to see that. I've never seen it available anywhere is the thing, but
I need to see that. Do another Anna Mae Wong episode.
well, I really want to do, by the way, Anna Mae Wong, her niece that Danny and I did an episode with, Danny and Anna Mae and Anna Mae's family recently took a private cemetery tour with me. And we had so much fun on that episode, you know? And I told her, I said, with the quarter coming out, the biopic coming up, there's so much more to talk about. And I said, you know, it doesn't have to be a recipe from a fan magazine. If there's like a Wong family recipe,
Even better.
we can make even better. And I am down. So hopefully she will do that and we'll get together again for another episode.
But I need to see the Anna Mae Wong, Dorothy Mackaill, Lon Chaney movie desperately.
Yeah.
If anyone is watching that has access to like the FIFA, I think it's the FIFA archive where you could log in and find out where stuff is located. I would love to find out where that one is.
I wish she had written a book with everyone she knew, Dorothy Mackaill. Damn it.
Oh, yeah. What a life.
What a very interesting, and there's just not, I've never seen a book on Dorothy Mackaill, not even a chapter that I know of in a book.
I don't think there is one.
Yeah, that doesn't exist.
Got any time on your hands, Lauren?
Yeah, basically.
Yeah, she would be an interesting person to tackle, just because, I mean, for a number of reasons, just all the people she knew and the stories she had, and sort of ties nicely into the coming of sound. And so yeah.
The whole Hawaii thing fascinates me, that she was there in 1929 and never got it out of her mind. Even, I mean, the film I think was shot on Waikiki Beach, and that's where she ended up. She died there, and they scattered her ashes at Waikiki Beach. Fascinating, you know, and imagine what Hawaii was like when she went there.
Oh gosh, wow.
Yeah.
Wasn't a part of the United States yet officially, wasn't a state anyway.
Right.
Yeah, and again, investing so much in real estate, that was a brilliant move. Like,
I would love to know what she owned on Wilshire Boulevard, but anything would work.
I think Garbo did too. Like I think Garbo bought up a lot of real estate.
That's what Norma Desmond did.
Yeah.
The oil pumping.
I wouldn't be too difficult to find out, you know, newspaper archives and things.
Yeah, I'll be doing another deep dive of Dorothy Mackaill later on.
Yes.
Well, some of these people, they're just such fascinating people. Like there's so much more to kind of explore about who they were, how they lived, what kind of films they made, and it's endless.
And I'm surprised they didn't even try to manufacture Scandal or something. I mean, you know, yet she was still beloved and very, very famous. But, you know, sometimes, I saw one thing that called her, and I'd love to know who the other people were, one of the 7 most beautiful women in the United States. That's interesting, and I'll go with it.
Who are the other 6?
They didn't say.
Yeah.
Probably wise not to say.
Yeah.
I think it's them.
You know what I thought about also this past week of watching a lot of her films. When she's on screen, I don't really notice anybody else really. It's like it's starring Dorothy Mackaill and a lot of other people. Oh, and Joan Blundell. Okay, I do notice Joan Blundell, but you know what I mean?
Mhm.
Just your
Yeah.
eyes goes her, and that's what.
Yeah, and she's very interesting to look at. I mean, she's beautiful, but she has kind of unusual features that kind of attract you.
Well, that's, and the Stanwyck comparison, not to compare them, they're both very different, but that's what Stanwyck has.
Yeah, for sure.
Else on the screen, and I love that I'm sure they were up for the same role a couple times. I wonder how well they knew each other.
Yeah, that's another interesting rabbit hole to go down, is the Stanwyck Dorothy Mackaill dual rabbit hole.
So Leslie has a question. Maybe Dorothy didn't leave that much information about herself behind because she stayed quiet due to ties to Marion and Hearst. I don't think that that's it. I think that she had, of course, ties to Marion and Hearst, but they were friends. I mean, there wasn't any, she wasn't going to be implicated in anything, and there was no reason to hide anything.
And maybe some people are just private people and they just don't.
Yeah, I think that
They don't hang out, as it were.
yeah, she knew a lot of people, and she had ties to a lot of people, and I think that she just kind of made her own decisions about her own life and her own career. And some people don't leave a whole lot of information about themselves. They just prefer to be here and then not be here.
Right. Laura, the trip to Europe that she wanted, is that the one where there's a lot of film footage, and is she in it?
Yes, I have the film footage. It's so cool.
Wait, what year was that?
What was that?
What year was that?
34.
Is that the one Mary Carlisle was on?
Mary Carlisle was on the one in 36.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
I miss Mary Carlisle.
Oh, she's a pistol and a half, that woman.
Yeah, Mary Carlisle, for those of you watching, was an actress at MGM. She was kind of a supporting actress, and she lived to be, it was 102, 100. She lived a very good long
Was it 100 or maybe even older? No, it wasn't quite 104, I don't think, because Olivia.
Almost Olivia.
Almost Olivia level longevity.
My friend Darren Barnes took me to see her at the Motion Picture Country Home at the UCLA Film Archive. So I got to talk with her on many, many occasions.
She was still walking around and going to things.
She did kicks for long.
Yeah.
She
told me, I'm not sick. I'm not sick. I can shake and I can kick. And she did a high kick. It's like, oh, Mary. 100 years old when I met her.
I got to meet her one time at the Motion Picture Home, and I showed up in a vintage gown, and she immediately just started holding my hand and sat down with me and started talking to me about Hearst Castle. And I was just sitting there like I couldn't believe it was happening.
Yeah.
I have this magazine article about Dorothy and her then co-star George O'Brien from 1924.
Let me show that to the camera.
She's so beautiful. I swear she looked like that in the 1970s.
Oh, yeah.
I would call arrestingly.
But I wanted to read the last line of the little bio. Miss Mackaill is interesting because she has depth. She is vital, alive, human, and an actress to her fingertips. I just love that.
Makes sense.
Yeah.
Sure. But yeah, for those of you watching, if you haven't seen Dorothy Mackaill movies, there are on DVD. I would look on YouTube, because I think if you don't know her work, she is absolutely worth discovering.
Yeah, definitely. And Krista says she had a great voice for sound too, which, yeah, I mean, she really did. And listening to her interview tapes in the 70s, you can hear that gorgeous voice. It's still the same, you know, you can hear, it's like Dorothy Mackaill talking. So it is a really good voice for sound. I agree.
I wonder if when she did that, if anyone suggested she write her memoirs, and she's just like, I'm not interested, but who knows?
Yeah, I have a feeling that she thought that her career wasn't really worth a serious, in-depth discussion. A lot of people thought that way. A lot of people thought that their careers just weren't worth that, and it was their work, and you know.
Well, and all three of us have done books, and we know quite well that when you deal with publishers, sometimes they want really scandalous, really big name, and it's harder and harder to get a book done if they're not that, because they want stuff they can sell it on, you know. So like there's a zillion people I would love to read about or even write about, but then I think, well, trying to get that sold would be such a battle.
Really,
that's one of the reasons I'm so glad that my book ended up at UC Press, because I think with academic with academic publishers, they're as invested in the historical accuracy as you are. And so there's not as much emphasis on, oh, you need to write more about such and such a scandal or whatnot. I really didn't want to do that.
Like a lot of these publishers, they want the Errol Flynn's, they want the people that are doing a parade of scandal, and that's not always what the story that we want to tell.
And I often, about my obsession with the people that were super famous and then kind of forgotten, is like, if she had stuck around just a few more years and maybe gotten, one of the 1939 classics, then I bet we'd all know these earlier films that we were just talking about, because, we look at Betty Davis's early work. If she had disappeared, we wouldn't be seeing some of those films. Some, yeah, Petrified Forest, whatever. But I just think, if she had made just a couple of those big ones, although at the time some of her films were big, like Safe in Hell, William Wellman. But yeah, but then she didn't. I mean, look at Cora Sue Collins. Like, I'm done. I have a wonderful life. I wouldn't change anything. It's not.
Yeah.
I feel selfish wanting her to have gone on longer.
Well, then the other thing is too, though, is that for some of them, I think their heart just wasn't in it anymore. Like Fairbanks, Clara Bow, I think they could have easily continued as character performers, but I think they were like, you know what, over it, ready to move on. But then someone like Dorothy, we talked about this past November with the Tyrone Power episode. Angie Snyder and I, and TK Power, his grandson, we talked about, like, why is he not better known? Because I've always been a fan of his. But I think he did some great movies, but they weren't, again, Gone with the Wind says they weren't that level of iconic. I think, God bless Eddie Muller and the Film Noir Foundation, because Nightmare Alley did get a huge renaissance when the remake came out. But overall, he doesn't have movies in his filmography that are like these lightning rod, iconic, super beloved by people outside of people like us.
Right, because I'm often talked to like Tyrone Power is one of the most famous actors. But it's true.
Like us, we kind of live in our own metaverse or whatever you call this. But for the average person, though, the average person will know Judy Garland. The average person is not going to probably know Tyrone Power, not in the same way.
Yeah.
And he deserves to be better known. He absolutely does.
And I'm glad.
Yeah, so many of these people.
Tour.
I try.
Yeah, so many of these people do deserve to be better known, but I think there's also a point where you sort of come to this crossroads of, yes, they should be better known, but they didn't really want to be better known. They didn't, and these were human beings who were working, and when you are making enough money that you don't have to work anymore to support yourself, and you want to retire, they should have that right, and
the bullshit of Hollywood, yeah,
not deal with studio heads and whatever anymore.
Life, I mean, a lot of really hard battles they fought for a very long time.
And you never get the impression reading about Dorothy Mackaill that someone like Joan Crawford, that she was driven every moment of her life to be a huge movie star. Whereas Dorothy Mackaill, I'm sure she enjoyed her career, but you never get that blinding ambition.
Yeah, and it's also similar to Marion, right? I mean, Marion had the same approach to her work. It was something that she did. She was proud of it. She had fun, but when she was done, and she didn't feel the need to continue on just for the purposes of being a star or whatever. It wasn't important to her the same way it was important to Joan Crawford.
Well, you know what gets me though about people like Joan, and I love Joan, as you know, but the push and the drive, I think, ultimately can be really heartbreaking. And it comes to mind, the Fablemans, that line when Judd Hirsch looks at Steven Spielberg and he says, "If you choose to be an artist, this will break your heart." He says something to that effect.
Interesting.
I sometimes wonder, maybe that's why I feel so bad for Betty. I sometimes wonder if that drive and that sense you can't let this go, you have to keep working and creating, if that just doesn't ultimately really cause them some pain in certain ways, because the ageism, the sexism, the difficulty getting roles as they got older, it was a battle.
Yeah, and people have this idea that being famous is easy, and once you're famous you have it made or whatever, but fame can be really, really hard for a lot of people.
Sure.
Oh, yeah.
you can't go outside without being recognized.
And she was at that level, so, you know, I could see
Yeah.
her, let me go to Hawaii, I've got the money.
Exactly.
So you can't always live up to people's expectations. Oh, you used to be young. Oh, you used to be that. And it's like, you're
Yeah,
not.
it's like the and I'm still here, you know. I've gone through, hey lady, aren't you through this? Yeah.
Yeah,
Look who you were.
I think if you have wealth, money, beauty, fame, your life is going to be great. But as we know from a lot of these stars' lives, that doesn't make their life great. And a lot of times it causes problems. I mean, everybody, I think every one of us has problems. And, you know, people look on social media and think a lot of us, me included, maybe have these perfect lives, and they don't know what goes on behind closed doors.
mhm.
And
Yeah,
sometimes
and-
that can be very shocking to people.
Yeah, and I think it's a cause of a lot of anxiety in young people, because these young people who have grown up with social media, they look at these Instagram accounts and things of famous people, and they, or you know, people who are internet famous or whatever you want to call it, and they think, oh, these people just have perfect lives. Why isn't my life like that?
Right.
Yeah.
And they don't know, you know, they don't know what's going on that off the Instagram account. And same thing, I think, with the movie stars, you know, with Betty and Joan, and with all of the people who were famous in the 30s. They had some really hard times,
Mhm.
and they just weren't publicized. So people thought, oh, I wish I were like Betty Davis. Well, no, really, you don't.
Right.
Yeah.
And I must say, I was heartened getting back to the Dorothy Mackaill appearance on This Is Your Life, Joel McCrae, because she just bursts out. There's not, you know, sometimes there was just, she was not self-conscious. She was so happy to talk about the film they had made, you know, 50 years earlier or whatever, that I felt she really enjoyed her career. And it didn't matter that it didn't continue, or that maybe some people that even then didn't know who she was. So
Yeah.
yay. It also makes me think, and we won't go into this on this episode, but like, where are the Dorothy Mackaills in a movie like Babylon, which shows everyone as this teeming bed of debauchery? You know, I'm sorry, a lot of people were also living good lives like Dorothy Mackaill and were super famous.
Yeah. Leslie's just said something interesting. Leslie said, I think Joan and Betty couldn't imagine not being stars. I doubt they wanted to be or were comfortable being anything else. I think that's really an astute comment.
Leslie,
Yeah.
you hit the nail right on the head. Yeah.
Yeah. I think that especially Joan, I mean, Betty maybe had a little bit of identity outside of being a star, but I'm not sure that Joan had any identity outside of being a star. That's just who she was, because if she wasn't Joan Crawford, the movie star, she was this kid who had a really dysfunctional childhood and
Poverty.
yeah, poverty. And I think a similar thing with Marilyn Monroe.
Yeah. So true. So, you know, yay to the Dorothy Mackaills that, I mean, she seems like just a very healthy person.
Yeah.
Who I also love. I mean, I
Mhm.
think when her film career ended, she was lost. She was kind of in the wilderness. And yes, she did charity work, and yes, she produced movies, but I don't think she ever really felt right. You know, in
True.
terms of, she just was kind of drifting through life, not knowing what the next thing would be. And she didn't have hobbies or it seems anyway, that were really outside of the movie business.
Right, being comfortable with money is certainly not the fail-safe. You could end up, you know, like fictional Norma Desmond and just be desperate for something else. So yeah. Yeah, it's interesting.
Yeah.
These people all have such interesting lives. Like, there's such complexity and nuance and so much to talk about with all of these stars. They're just fascinating people.
Well, and thank you to you that we're spending an hour talking about Dorothy Mackaill, because it just makes me feel, it's like when I'm in cemeteries, you know, where they're not famous people, I like to say their names out loud, just because like they need to be remembered. And, you know.
Yeah, someone told me once that like you die like twice, like the first time when your body technically dies, and then the second time you die is when no one says your name anymore, or something to that effect. I'm probably getting the words wrong, but so that's one thing that I try so hard to do, is just keep the memories alive of these people, because they were artists, they were fascinating people, they were moving the needle on the culture at the time, they were innovators, pioneers. I mean,
Incredibly talented.
and they brought so much to the world, so much entertainment, so much art, so much culture. And I just want them to be remembered. And I've said this many times, but one of the most joyous things was like, I think the Halloween before last, this like 20-year-old girl and her boyfriend took my cemetery tour. And she texted me she couldn't wait to get home and watch Peter Lorre movies. And I was like, this is exactly why I got out of bed today. That is the exact reason.
You're doing
Guys,
that.
there's some cool stuff happening in the comments. Betsy from the Mackaill Ranch just commented. Yes, and said Joel and Dorothy made 2 movies together in 1931, Kept Husbands and Once a Sinner. Yes. Here's Dorothy in 1970. So she posted the link. She posted the link to the This Is Your Life.
Oh, excellent.
Yes, and then Gary says in reading about Dorothy online, she reportedly fell in love when first visiting Hawaii to make a movie, but it didn't mention who she fell in love with. Do we think that she fell in love with a person, or do we think that she fell in love with Hawaii?
I always thought it was Hawaii.
I just thought it was Hawaii too.
But
Yeah,
there's something there.
it might just be Hawaii, Gary. I mean, we could do some more research on that, but it might. That was my impression. My impression was she fell in love with Hawaii.
And Dvorak, here's another Hawaiian person that saw Hawaii, fell in love, and that's where Anne Dvorak stayed for a long, long time too.
Yeah, it seems to be a recurring theme.
I've yet to visit Hawaii, but it strikes me as the kind of place that you totally fall in love with completely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The other.
Well, I think that's about it for this particular episode, but thank you so much to everybody for watching. Danny, Laura, thank you so much for joining me today.
I mean, this was a really fun episode. We touched on a lot of really, really deep things.
We did. I love it.
And ate popovers, which were delicious.
And we ate popovers.
I'm gonna eat all the popovers now, all of them. So, and if, by the way, if you guys make anybody watching, tag us, hashtag Hollywood Kitchen, tag all 3 of us or something. I'd love to see how everybody else's turns out. And if you have any troubles like I did with opening the oven or anything like that. And I do have a Patreon if anybody wants to contribute. All funds go to buy groceries, cookbooks, and supplies for the show. So, and of course, I have to plug your book. Tell us about your books.
About Face. It's about Dottie Ponadell, makeup artist to the stars, good friend of Marlene Dietrich and Judy Garland.
And also Laura, author of Marion Davies, the Captain of Her Soul, The Life of Marion Davies.
Fabulous book.
Yes.
Thank you. Thank you.
And Laura, tell us where people can find you, because again, you are on the promotional trail in a tremendous way right now.
So I'm Backlots Film everywhere. I'm Backlots Film on Twitter and Instagram. And the book has a Facebook page, just Captain of Her Soul, Life with Marion Davies. Yeah, the book's available everywhere.
In retrospective at UCLA Film and TV Archive.
Yes. So on February 4th, starting on February 4th.
Next weekend, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, the weekend of February 4th, February 4th and 5th, we're doing a series of movies. First movie is Show People at the Billy Wilder Theater, which is inside the Hammer Museum. I'll be doing a Q&A that night and book signing and all that. Then the next day is Blondie of the Follies and Cardboard Lover on February 5th. Then the following weekend, we're also doing a couple of movies. Wait, no, I'm sorry. It's not Cardboard Lover and it's Blondie of the Follies and Peg of My Heart, the first day, I think. Then the following weekend on the 12th is the Cardboard Lover. So we've got some cool stuff planned. And if you're in the middle of the country, Karen, I know Karen is in Chicago. I'm going to be at the Kansas Silent Film Festival the last weekend of February.
And I've been before in the past. Those Kansas folks know how to have a good time.
Oh,
yeah.
You would be really
excited,
guys, if they know how to have
yeah. So I'll be introducing Little Old New York and doing the cinema dinner speech. Yeah.
And that's a great festival, and they were so cool when I went there. I had a great time.
Yeah. By the way, the UCLA Film and TV Archive events at the Wilder are free. So if you want to come, what was that?
I think they made the parking free now too, which is kind of.
Oh yeah. Oh, that's great.
I think so.
Yeah.
So great opportunity.
Thank you guys for joining us, and please stay tuned for more food, fun, and film history from Hollywood Kitchen.